On behalf of Sherry Simmons and John Yancey is Rebecca Sheldon.
Thank you, Senator Orr, and thank you to the panel for presenting the information that you did. I think if John and Sherry were here, I know they wish they could be here because the information you presented explains a lot about their situations.
Can you speak louder, please?
Okay, thank you. Sorry. My name is Rebecca Sheldon. I'm here today to share the stories of two individuals who could not be here in person, John Yancey and Sherry Simmons. As fellow residents of the Tug Hill in Lewis County, New York, they live about 4 miles from the Sheldon family farm in opposite directions. Like the Sheldons, their family roots grow deep here. Through the course of many conversations, I have come to know the details of their experiences with wind turbines and how they have been impacted. What I share with you now has been prepared at their request and under their supervision. John lives on the edge of Maple Ridge, one of New York's oldest and largest wind projects. His view to the south and west is dominated by at least 50 of the nearly 400-foot tall turbines. The closest, 1,300 feet from his front door. 2,500 feet from his back door stands another turbine. Several more are within a mile. These turbines are responsible for the noise that have compromised his peace and quiet for the past 13 years. At times, he tells me, they can be as loud as a freight train. He can hear them over the running engine of a school bus parked in his driveway. During the winter, when there is ice on the blades, the noise is horrific. Even when it is not windy enough to produce electricity, the turbines still spin, waiting for wind. They constantly gear up and down, which is accompanied by a sound like that of a jet engine. I was just at John's house this morning and I heard that firsthand, the gearing up and down, and it was a quiet morning there, and it's a jet engine right next to his house. Though John sleeps with a white noise machine by his bed, it isn't until he travels away from home that he realizes how much better he can sleep. For John, the noise of the turbines is not just a sound, but also a sensation. He has told me that he doesn't need to look out the window to see if the wind stopped blowing. He can just feel it in his body. And when the wind does stop blowing, it startles him to remember just how quiet it used to be. As John has explained to me, turbines don't just add a new sound to the environment, they drown out enjoyable natural sounds one would expect to hear in a rural setting, such as leaves rustling in the breeze or the croaking of frogs. And that is not all they have taken from John. His sunsets have been altered by shadow flicker, especially in the spring and fall. All the windows on one whole side of his house are kept closed, blinds drawn, in order to block the disturbing distortions of light and sound. They have contributed to a family rift when his father signed a lease to host turbines. John's anger and frustration at the situation played a role in the decline of his first marriage. They have turned the farm of his youth into an industrial park. In his view, they have replaced community values with corporate greed that have pitted neighbor against neighbor. John has contacted the developer many times. Once there was an actual mechanical issue that was contributing to higher than normal sound levels, and that was repaired after 6 months. But overall, nothing has changed in 13 years. A sound study was conducted from his property, though he has never seen or heard about the results. As one of the few people on Maple Ridge who did not sign a lease or a good neighbor agreement, John has spoken out publicly against industrial wind, attending town board meetings and hearings to warn residents that wind energy isn't everything it's cracked up to be. Sherry Simmons' story began much more recently with the construction of Copenhagen Wind in 2018. As the Simmons family became aware of this proposed project, they refused to participate, denying the developer, EDP, the rights to cross their 100-acre farm with transmission lines. When EDP could not assure them that there were no safety risks, they turned down money to allow the turbines closer to their property. Despite their proactive measures, when the project was constructed, the Simmons had 13 500-foot turbines within close view of their farm, 2 of them only a few hundred feet from their property line. The closest turbine was 2,500 feet from Sherry's home and 1,700 feet from her son's. When it came online in December of 2018, it was soon apparent that they were much too close and much too loud. Sherry describes the noise as the sound of a diesel truck sitting in your driveway, calling it unbearable at times, with the nighttime hours being the worst, making it very difficult to sleep. Even when the wind isn't blowing, the turbines rotate to try and find the wind, making a whining sound. After a series of frustrating and dead-end phone calls to the developer, Sherry began attending town board meetings to seek remedies. Finally, with the town involved, EDP promised to conduct a sound study, though it has not yet been performed or even scheduled. They acknowledge that there is a noise problem, but precious little has been done to correct it. Sherry has pointed out to me that the problem is not just the closest turbine, it is the whole project. Many of her neighbors have complained of similar noise issues, the sound of a jet engine in their living rooms, whooshing sounds louder than the television, but they don't know what they can do. So they don't do anything. One woman keeps a daily log of what the turbines are doing around her property. She walks the roads and takes note after note of the sounds they are making and what they're doing. In the meantime, while Sherry waits for her sound study, she has been put on antidepressants to help with her PTSD, which is the result of a horrific car accident. It had been under control for years, but has recently worsened. She has a very strong startle reflex. She was rear-ended by a dump truck and almost died. So she startles very easily. She's also always listening to background noise, as if trying to hear the truck coming towards her. She is at times anxious and overwhelmed, and I don't think she necessarily connects that to the PTSD. It's just a feeling that's always with her. At other times, she feels confused and forgetful. She is taking sleep aids, as has her son and his family, including their 2 children, ages 9 and 11. Anxiety has been a problem for the entire family. They cannot enjoy the land that has been a part of their family for 4 generations. The quiet solitude that soothed Sherry's PTSD symptoms is gone. The cabin that they built on a remote part of the property is so impacted by shadow flicker and noise that it's not the relaxing getaway it was intended to be. When I asked her if she would ever move, she said, "No, I will never move from here. My husband was born in the house we live in and also died here and is now buried here. This home is our life. We have worked hard to have this. Why should a windmill chase me away? I will fight them to regain what we had until I die." John and Sherry hope that sharing their stories sheds some light on the true impacts of wind turbines. For those living closest to them, the consequences extend beyond that of just a bothersome sound. Turbines can become a destructive and invasive presence, which can come at any hour without warning and with no way to make it cease. It goes where peace and silence are needed and expected and deserved, taking with it many aspects of human well-being. Thank you for listening.